Rangers, Panthers, Eastern Conference Final. Let's go.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so this is John Chick with Locked on New York Rangers, joined by my good friend Armando Velez of Locked on Florida Panthers. And exciting times, obviously, for the both of us and both fan bases. We got an Eastern Conference Final matchup about to happen. And Armando, man, we called this, a couple of months ago. I know we were trying to go ahead and figure out a crossover episode. We couldn't quite do it. And I said to you, hey, well, it's all right. We'll just meet up for the Eastern Conference Final. And here we are. So just your thoughts on this heavyweight matchup here, Rangers and Panthers. Winner goes to the finals.
Yeah, we manifested this, man, for getting it to this point of the postseason. I mean, what better way to have South Florida and New York with a lot of not just the sport, but a lot of people who come from New York to Florida and a lot of people who come from South Florida to and vice versa when it comes to moving. It feels like a lot of the people who at least live there switch places a lot when it comes to that. So a lot of fans from both teams going to be in both of these away cities too. And it's crazy, John. There's going to be a new champion, a new Stanley Cup champion for the first time in 25 years. The last one of the Final Four to win a championship was the Dallas Stars in 1999. And it's crazy also with since 1980, since the merger of WHA and the NHL, none of the top four teams have been either division winners or top four in the regular season. So it's crazy to think the correlations between all that. I mean, New York wins the President's Trophy in 1992 before getting bounced out in the second round. 2022, the Florida Panthers win the President's Trophy, get bowed out, get eliminated in the second round, and then they're back in the conference final 2 years later, just like the New York Rangers in 94 too. So it's crazy, all the connections here.
Yeah, just very exciting. And, we were talking right before we hit record, obviously 2 years ago, got the Rangers to go to the Eastern Conference Final, and that was a lot of fun for me. And, of course, your team goes to the final last year, and here they are again this year with a chance to do it again. But how about just this year, the road that each of these teams traveled, obviously it wasn't easy to get this far. It never is in the playoffs. Even like if you get like a sweep or a win in 5 games, it's never as easy as it sounds. And obviously the Panthers, they got to take out the Lightning on their way here. They beat them in 5 games. And then, a dogfight against the Bruins, just a physical, nasty series. Panthers win it in 6, and the series clincher there by Forsling near the end of Game 6. But what can you just say about the road that the Panthers traveled to make it this far, and how excited are you to keep the thing going here?
I mean, it's crazy because, for the Panthers, this wasn't really settled until Game 82 when they took control over the Toronto Maple Leafs in that second period, and Boston lost the last 2 games for the Panthers to get home ice in the first 2 rounds to begin with, which is crazy because the Panthers have lived off of road success too. They finished the last 4 games at home in the regular season, and they won for all 4 of them to match their home record and road record. But even last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs, all of their series started on the road for them too, and winning at least 1 game in each of the first 3 rounds too, for them. And also the injuries that they came into this season with Brandon Montour, Aaron Ekblad, getting some complementary pieces, along with the cap room relief from former Ranger Keith Yandel, too, coming into this season. When they bought him out, they had that $5.3 million hole in last year, but they still made the final. All that freed up space brought Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Dmitry Kulikov back to the Florida Panthers, Nico Mikolo, former Ranger too, in the mix too, to beef up and get a little bit stronger for them. But the road for the Panthers to get here, you had to slay the dragon that was Big Brother in the Tampa Bay Lightning. Third battle of Florida for them. I know that the Tampa Bay Lightning were a little bit thin on the blue line and the high quality chances that they were giving up on Vasilevsky, as you can see with trading for Ryan McDonough and bringing him back to Tampa Bay. Another former Ranger too in this. So also with that, but also for the Florida Panthers in round 2, really lackluster games 1 and 5, but in between that, the Panthers really controlled play. The play was on the opposite side, on the Bruins end a lot, but really had to test Jeremy Swayman puck shot after shot after shot until they were able to finally break through. And really, the Panthers really did this with okay special teams. Really, games 2 and 3 were the games that they really exploded there for them. But best road penalty kill in the regular season, carried it over to the Boston series where they were over 93% on the kill, which in their previous series against Boston, they were 59. So it's a complete 180 on special teams for them. And it's carried over to this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Special teams are going to be big. The Rangers, obviously, they're a top elite special teams squad, throughout the entire regular season. They've leaned on it in the playoffs here as well. And as far as the road that the Rangers traveled, you start with the Caps, and, on paper, it looks like a mismatch, but you just never know. And in the back of your head as a Ranger fan that, okay, they won the President's Trophy. If they somehow don't get past the Capitals, that's a complete just catastrophe ending to a really good season. And then even against the Canes, obviously the Rangers had the better record. They had home ice and the whole 9 yards. They got up 3-0, but they were actually the betting underdog for that series, which I believe they are in this series as well against the Panthers. It's pretty close if I'm remembering correctly, but I do think the Panthers are at least slightly favored. And yeah, man, it got a little dicey there. Obviously the Rangers go up 3-0, but the Canes are able to win the next two, and then Chris Kreider just went full beast mode in Game 6 and decided this is the end of this series, and here we are. We made it this far. But something else I want to get your opinion on, just as far as where everything stands, because for me, this is when this is the round that you look at it and it's man, it's getting real now. You're one of the Panthers, the Rangers. They're two of only 4 teams out of the 32 left standing in the entire league. You're 8 wins away from hoisting the Stanley Cup. This is always the round to me that it starts to really feel real. Do you kind of share those feelings now that we're down to the Final Four here, so to speak?
Yeah, and as we go round by round, game by game, I'm just thinking one game at a time. And then when you see the Final Four, I'm like, wow, there's 32 teams, and you're in the top 1/8 of it, if you really think about it, in as far as a fraction for the whole entire league too. 12% of the league being here for both of them, and it's crazy for that. Just getting, it's funny because prior to last year, only once making it to the Stanley Cup final and even the Eastern Conference final, and then that 26-year drought without winning a playoff series. And now this is the best time for the Florida Panthers, building up a new practice facility, win 5 straight years in the postseason, and even winning at least one round in 3 consecutive. This is uncharted territory for the Florida Panthers and their franchise, and it's created so much buzz around the area. I know it helps with the Miami Heat being eliminated, that all the attention is on them, but really, it really comes down to how much of growth for the Panthers it's been, and it's going to be tougher for them too coming into this, because the Rangers, they just come in layers for especially in the forward group too. For them, this is going to be the hardest test for the top 6 for the Florida Panthers. And and it's crazy also for the Rangers, comparing 94. Messier gets a hat trick to get to the Eastern Conference final. They win the first 7 games. There's so many different comparisons between this current run for the Rangers and 1994 too. So it's also crazy to think that it's here. And all you think about for the Florida Panthers, not a traditional hockey market, but has to go into a hostile building, hostile environment, world's most famous arena, original 6. It's everything you want as even the team that doesn't have home ice advantage, which honestly, I'll tell you right off the jump, home ice isn't going to mean anything for either of these teams, because both of them can go into the other barn and come out with a win. The Florida Panthers in their two road games, they split in New York. I know regular season doesn't necessarily mean anything in the postseason, but even that second matchup, Panthers were a little hobbled going into it and still controlled a good amount of play before losing the shootout too. So it's going to be a fun challenge. The Panthers, with their road success, and they're not intimidated by a crowd, but still, it's also a great opportunity for them to really feel the noise of Madison Square Garden too. And we've seen it even in the 22 conference final, even Sunday, Knicks Pacers, that place was loud too. My goodness, it's a great opportunity for the Cats.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think it's going to be an electric environment, probably in both buildings. And to your point, these teams, neither one of them were dramatically better at home versus on the road. So home ice is nice and everything, and I'm sure players do feed off of the home crowd. But I completely agree that either one of these teams is more than capable of going on the road winning a big game when that's the case. So going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Armando and myself are going to talk about some key players on both sides, also some big storylines, some X factors, and of course, we have a prediction for what happens in this best of 7, and we will do all that fun stuff in just a second. All right, so Armando and I would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On Florida Panthers is brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you match candidates. With Indeed Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon, Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And for the everydayers, Armando and myself would first of all just like to say thanks. And of course, going forward on both shows, we're going to be covering this Eastern Conference final from every conceivable angle. And Armando, maybe we even do one more crossover episode at some point during the series. Could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yes, we'll keep everything rolling here. Want to talk a little bit about some players to watch on each side. And Armando, I'll throw to you first, man. Who's a Panther that we've got to keep our eyes on, and somebody that has to have a big series if you guys are going to win this thing?
I'll name 3 players for the Panthers. The first one for me is Anton Lundell. He's playing a bigger role now for the Panthers because of the fact that Sam Bennett got hit on a shot on the hand back in Game 2 of the Tampa series. Missed a good part of the rest of that series, along with the first 2 games of the Boston series too. And with that injured hand, he wasn't really taking a lot of faceoffs. Although in practice the other day, Bennett did take a few draws, so maybe he's one step closer to taking those again. But I mean, for Anton Lundell, before Paul Maurice made the changes back in Game 6 to bring Lundell back to that second line with Verhaeghe and Tkachuk, their analytics were looking good too, and that line is a +4 goal differential too since they've gone together. So it's been a step up for Anton Lundell there for him, and he plays valuable PK minutes too for the Cats, who they will definitely need him for this series with how great the Rangers power play is. Vladimir Tarasenko is another one for me. For him, putting him in a line that's not Sasha Barkov, he doesn't really generate a lot of offense. And when they were separated for that little period of time, and also Tarasenko had a little bit of an adjustment period when he got traded here. There's a few injuries, had to go for with the top line back to the third, and so on too. But even there was a stretch of like 3 or 4 games where he didn't have a shot on goal. And the moment that he goes back with Barkov, boom, he's getting pucks on net and also he's going to be very valuable for power play too, for the Panthers too, as that guy who's probably going to be maybe the main shooter on that unit too. Because if you're gonna defeat the New York Rangers, you're gonna have to get more than just power play 1 to get in on the scoring. So Vladimir Tarasenko is another one, and my next one, Aaron Ekblad. It hasn't been the best second. It wasn't the best second round for Ekblad. Sometimes he gets a little stuck in his own end with breakout passes where he's trying to bounce it off the half wall and then it gets intercepted. And sometimes even with his lack of speed, sometimes I'm just thinking, just flip the puck out, reset and everything. And sometimes and there were times where he was just in the neutral zone. He was committed over to the strong side where we saw that in Game 5 where Charlie Coyle went on a breakaway. Excuse me, Pavel Zacha. Sorry, he went on a breakaway and finished then. So Aaron Ekblad, if he performs anything like he did in round 2, even though the Panthers won, I don't think the Panthers will come out with this series because if Aaron Ekblad is anywhere to the level that he was in round 2. So definitely got to step up for him for sure for him. So that's mine. How about yours?
Those are your 3. So I'm going to throw out Chris Kreider, and Something that is kind of interesting with Kreider. He's one of those Rangers that I feel like there's times where he does split the fan base a little bit. I mean, I think for the most part, people like him, and obviously he's the elder statesman of the team, and he's been on so many of these different, playoff runs for the Rangers over the years. He's been one of the most important players on the team through, two separate eras of Ranger hockey, because he went through the rebuild with them, and obviously they've come out on the other end here. And here's Chris Kreider, 4 wins away from potentially going to the Stanley Cup final for the second time in his career. But obviously, look, Game 6 against the Canes, they're down by 2 goals with about 12 minutes to go or whatever it was, and he ends up with the natural hat trick, and they go on for the win. But Kreider, man, he's one of those guys that I think more so than maybe any other player on the Rangers, there's such a wide range between Chris Kreider at his absolute best and Chris Kreider at his absolute worst. When this guy's at his best, he is good enough that he can carry a team offensively, and that's really not hyperbole. He can be an absolutely dominant player. He's obviously a great net front presence. Teams really have a difficult time moving him out of the crease if he doesn't want to be moved, and absolutely lethal with those redirections in front. You add to that the fact that, again, he's somebody that's going to be counted on as a leader, one of the alternate captains, of course. And on top of that, huge part of the power play, huge part of the penalty kill. And the Rangers, throughout the entire regular season, they've really kind of leaned on those units. I mean, I think they're better 5v5 than a lot of people give them credit for, but that is the strength of their team, is playing on special teams, and that's continued in the playoffs as well. So he's going to be absolutely huge. I think number 2 for me, I mean, it's so cliche to go with the goalies, but, it's just such an obviously important position. And Igor Shesterkin, I mean, what can you say? He's been absolutely tremendous basically ever since he came into the league. And one thing I always say about Igor is that, pretty much no matter who is at the other end of the rink, whoever the opposing goalie is for whatever team the Rangers are playing, regular season, playoffs, whatever it might be, I'm always going to feel like Igor Shesterkin gives the Rangers a little bit of an edge. But the Panthers, I will say, with Sergei Bobrovsky over there, that does test my theory a little bit, because the guy's obviously phenomenal. He's had kind of an interesting career arc. He wasn't anything like special early in his career, and then he was phenomenal. And then the Panthers signed him that big contract. I think he struggled for like the first year there, but I mean, he's right back there, man, to being on the Mount Rushmore of current goalies in the league. So he's really been up and down throughout the years, but he's not somebody that I would bet against, in a big series. And obviously, he's been very important for you guys thus far, in the playoffs. But yeah, with all that said, Igor Shesterkin, it's not just the numbers. And, obviously he was the Vezina winner a couple of years ago. I think for me, the thing that I love about Igor the most is that, yeah, he's a great goalie, but he's even better at times where you really need him. When you really need one of those big saves, say like it's the third period and there's maybe like 7 minutes to go and you're down by a goal, he'll come up, or rather, down by a goal. He'll come up with that big save to keep the deficit at 1 and give you a chance to come back. If the game goes into overtime, he'll make some big saves there too. It just feels like the bigger the moment and the brighter the lights are, the more Igor Shesterkin rises. And obviously, that's going to be tested, because it is the Eastern Conference Final now. And as we've talked about, Armando, we've got a heavyweight matchup here. But my third player, I'm going to go Jacob Trouba. He's another player that I think at times can polarize the fan base a little bit. And obviously, there's fans of other teams, namely the Penguins, who don't seem to like Jacob Trouba very much. And obviously he does toe the line a little bit as far as, what's acceptable to do out there and what's not. But I mean, the Panthers are a really physical team. And I think the Rangers are a more physical team than they usually get credit for. But I would still give the edge to the Panthers in that department. And with that being the case, the Trouba train, right? He's going to be one of those guys that has to go out there and set a tone for this team physically. The Panthers are going to be out there hitting everybody that moves. The Rangers have to be able to fight back in that department, and I think Jacob Trouba is one of the guys to do that. And on top of that, I mean, the physicality is one thing, but he's going to have a bigger role now, because going into the playoffs, they had him down on the third pairing, and they have since moved him back up with his usual defense partner, K'Andre Miller. And the two of them, in Game 6, they played pretty well together, but they've been kind of hot and cold together this season. And I'll be curious to see if they stick with that pairing and if Jacob Trouba's minutes are going to go up. But I think he's going to be big, a lot because of the physicality, but also because he's just in a bigger role now. So definitely going to be an interesting matchup here. There's a lot of players to watch on both sides.
Yeah, and I think about with Chris Kreider, he was that one mainstay during the rebuild for the New York Rangers too, which funny enough, back in like 2018, 2019 for the Panthers. They needed the New York Rangers to win against the Philadelphia Flyers on a nationally televised game right before the Panthers had a rescheduled game in Buffalo, where they ended up being the team with the most points to not make the postseason. I remember that game from, I believe it was from Wells Fargo Center in that one. But going back to your three that you named, going on with Chris Kreider, too, a guy who goes along with the rebuild, Igor Shesterkin. It's crazy the goaltenders that the New York Rangers have had in the smooth transition there. It's crazy to think how it's been a luxury for them too. Panthers are the same. The goaltending history has been great for them. And Jacob Trouba, another a guy who Paul Maurice has coached too. So that's another thing for them. There's a lot of connections with Vincent Trocheck, Alex Wennberg for the Rangers too, and for the Florida Panthers side of things, Mikkola, Tarasenko, Bobrovsky, and Panarin, best friends who Panarin said that to Dan Rosen how Bobrovsky was the godfather of his daughter too. So that's another big storyline here for all the connections between the Rangers and the Panthers here. So it's great to see all the different connections and all the different roles that the three that you named will have or could have.
Yeah, man. And honestly, just talking about this, man, it just makes me want to see the puck drop because, you know, obviously both of these teams won in 6 games, but you get a decent amount of time off unless you go 7. You know, if you win in 6 games or fewer, you're going to have, almost a week off at the bare minimum. And obviously these teams have had time to, rest up, do whatever they have to do to get ready. And that's how I like it. Let's just see both teams at full strength and may the best team win. But we are going to keep talking about everything in just a second here. Armando and I are going to pick out a couple of X factors. And Armando, both these teams were active at the trade deadline as well. I want to ask you a little bit about some of those players that the Panthers picked up at that time, and we will do that in just a second. All right, so talking Rangers-Panthers, Eastern Conference Final, myself, John Chick, my good friend Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers. And Armando, both these teams, buyers at the deadline, and it's always so chaotic, the final days, the final hours there, and where both these teams going to do. The Panthers, obviously, they go out, they get Hellberg, they get Okposo, and really the big one, former Ranger Vladimir Tarasenko. So just your thoughts on how all those players have kind of fit in. I mean, specifically Tarasenko, because you guys basically stole him from the Senators. He kind of forced his way there. That's where he wanted to play, and only cost you guys, I think it was like a third and a conditional fourth. So, just your thoughts on all these guys, but especially Tarasenko.
Yeah, Tarasenko is. With the Florida Panthers going into the postseason in the bottom third of 5-on-5 scoring, I mean, it's definitely a weapon that could be that is definitely useful for the Panthers here. And just like I said, with him being an important player for the Panthers on just getting into that power play scoring, and I know there's a lot of talk about his defense, but I see him back checking, and for him. Being on the same line as Sasha Barkov, that's definitely a big factor. Him playing with Sam Reinhart, two guys who had the 2 most first place votes too, so that definitely helps Tarasenko on that line too when it does happen with the matchups when you get to that Zibanejad line too, and I mean especially with how on the other side, Alexis Lafreniere has definitely developed in his game too for that. And also, if you're a Senators fan, you're rooting for the Panthers because it's a conditional third. If the Panthers do win the Cup, that pick does improve. Also for the Sabres too, with Kyle Okposo, they're definitely rooting for him for getting a better draft pick too with the conditions there. But as far as my X factors, Alexander Barkov for me, he's had more of that killer instinct lately, and he also in practice the other day he scored a goal. The water bottle came off the goal, landed behind the net, grabbed it, and just took a sip, put it back too. So he's definitely taking it to a next level for him too offensively. We always knew about his defensive game, but he's definitely shown that in the postseason for him. Another X factor for me is Matthew Tkachuk. He's leading the Panthers in points, but we haven't really seen that killer instinct. I mean, we didn't really see that killer instinct too much of Matthew Tkachuk to the Eastern Conference Final last year, where he got 3 game-winning goals too. So thankfully for him, he's playing on the same line as Lindell. Like I said earlier, their analytics are good. They're +4 as a line too. And Bobrovsky is another one. Not a lot of shot volume for him, for Sergei Bobrovsky, but if anyone can survive low shot volume, it's a 2-time Vezina Trophy winner. So it's going to be it's gonna be interesting to see, especially because of how New York was pinned a lot in their own end in the second round against Carolina. But don't let the series result fool you. Carolina really challenged New York, and they really gave them all they had for this one, for that second round too. And I'm saying that mostly for my listeners, but also Sam Reinhart feasted on New York during the regular season, and interesting to see what Laviolette does as far as his adjustments. You mentioned Miller and Trouba going back together too. Also, I saw that Ryan Lindgren has been taking a few maintenance days, so I'm expecting him to be in the series. But also, Paul Maurice also said that you reinvent yourself before every series, and I'm going to be interested to see what the New York Rangers are going to do about Sam Reinhart in that bumper position too, or how they defend the corners, on how aggressive they are, because they do like to jump into the play to get that offense going down the ice, because they're a fast run and gun style team, where the Florida Panthers are ones who slow the pace.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I remember with Reinhart, I think he ended up scoring like 4 goals against the Rangers this season, if I'm not mistaken. So he is somebody that has to be accounted for, and they have to keep an eye on him. As far as, some X factors for me, I'll throw out a couple names here. So Philip Hedl, Armando, I'm not sure how closely you followed this situation, but, obviously he's had a scary concussion history, and he got another one. I mean, they refuse to call it, but you read between the lines and you use some common sense, and it's pretty obvious that that's what was going on. And he missed the entire rest of the regular season, only got back for game 3 against the Canes in this last round, and then sat for the rest of the series. And the report was that he had an illness, and everybody kind of assumed, well, it's got to be related to the concussion. And the Rangers say it's not related to the concussion, it's just an illness. So the whole thing is kind of shrouded in mystery, and I get it. They're probably trying to protect the players' privacy as much as they can and reveal as little as possible. But if Philip Hedl's in this series, which it looks like at practice he's going to be, he's been rolling on the third line there with Wenberg and Kakko. I think he could really be an X factor, somebody that gives the Rangers a little more speed. I wouldn't really call them a slow team at all. I wouldn't say that they're like a super fast team either, but he gives you some speed there for sure. I've always liked him at wing better than center, which is what he would be playing if this current alignment holds going into game 1 here. But somebody that, the other thing too, just look at the human factor, right? I mean, this dude has missed basically the entire season. He's very well liked in that locker room, dealt with all these concussions, had a nasty fall at practice where, it looked like he wasn't going to be playing again this season. But I mean, tell me if you're this guy's teammate that you don't want to just, skate through a brick wall if you see him back on the ice. So I think for that reason, it could be big. And another X factor, I'm not even sure he's going to play, but Matt Rempe, he's somebody that obviously kind of took the league by storm when he first, was called up to the Rangers. He's a beast. So former 6th-round pick, and, getting in all these fights and everything. But again, we talked about the Panthers' physicality a little bit earlier, right? And I just think that, they do play with an edge, and they do play with, a certain nastiness to the Panthers. They're clean. I think it's a clean team, but they bring it. There's no doubt. And I think somebody that can kind of take that game and throw it right back at them a little bit is Matt Rempe. So he is an X factor for me if he actually plays. We'll see how the whole thing shakes out here. But yeah, that's kind of where things are. And we were talking about the trade deadline acquisitions not long ago, and obviously the Rangers bring in Roslovic and Wenberg. Wasn't as splashy as last year when they got Kane and Tarasenko, but these guys have both fit in very nicely. Wenberg's done a heck of a job on the penalty kill. Just, he's a good skater and everything. I just wish he had a little more finish to his game. He just doesn't, so you just kind of have to live with it. And Roslovic is somebody that has kind of been up and down, a little bit hot and cold, but he is racking up some points in the playoffs, and he made 2 huge plays in Game 6. A couple of secondary assists where neither of the goals would have happened if it wasn't for him keeping the play alive. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I think, these new guys for the Rangers have come in and played well and fit like a glove, and it sounds like things are going well for the Panthers pickups at the trade deadline as well. Something else I think is going to be big, we mentioned very briefly earlier in this recording, special teams. And obviously the Rangers, an elite team, both power play and penalty. Ranger power play versus Panthers PK. And I'm just wondering, man, like, what's been kind of the key to success, for the Panthers PK, and how are they able to, they've played some pretty high scoring teams and guys that can put the puck in the net. So how have they been able to do that?
It's just about just continuing to be tight and be aggressive on the half walls when it's necessary for them, because we've seen so many times how sometimes the mid slot could be open, and even the net front, which Chris Kreider and Vincent Trocheck can definitely do, especially Kreider, who I just look at all his highlights and I just look at a better version of Patrick Hornquist on the different types of goals that he scores. It could be off the head, off the knee, off the shoulder, anywhere. So you got to be careful with him. And also Vincent Trocheck, for him, you got to win your draws too. That's going to be an important one, because Vincent Trocheck has been just really great at getting those offensive zone draws on the power play. So that's definitely one. And also the ability to take away the backdoor feeds too, which we know that they can get it to Panarin on that right side, or Zibanejad in the bumper. It's just a really dangerous team. And also a Norris Trophy defenseman in Adam Fox. And also going back to your Hedl, talk about Hedl, I saw the tweet that he was on power play too, so, along with the third line too. So that's another thing for as far as him coming back. But it really it's really about taking away those lanes, and it's going to be easier said than done. And also about positioning in front of Bob, making sure that he can see the puck. So that's a very important one.
Absolutely. And I figured we can wrap up today's episode, Armando, by throwing out some predictions. I know we're in a little bit of a time crunch here. So who you got, man? Which team wins this series, and in how many games?
All right. So when it comes to breaking down all the different position groups for the Panthers and the Rangers, for defense, I would say that Florida's slightly better in that category as far as like tightening things up. Forwards, I would say it's a push, but maybe the Florida Panthers bottom six edges them a little bit. Not really. But goaltender, I would say New York has the edge there, with Igor Shesterkin being the younger one, and with the workload. And hey, it depends for the Panthers, how many shots can you get on him before he breaks. But special teams, it's got to go to the Rangers there, and I think that's really going to be huge for the Panthers to stop, and I'm not sure if they can, unfortunately for them. But for me, I am predicting the New York Rangers to win this series in 6 games for them. And I think with them getting home ice, I know we said it doesn't necessarily matter, but if the Panthers come out of there without a win, it could cause trouble for them, even though they're more than capable as well as winning at home too. But for them, I just think that everything lining up for the Rangers, I think it's just it feels like destiny for them. And the Panthers coming off a run, it's tougher to get back to the final. So I'm gonna say the Rangers win the series in 6 games.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I didn't expect that, by the way. I thought you'd pick the Panthers, but I'm going to say Rangers in 7. I just feel like, to all the points you just made, it's hard to like really come up with an area where, this team is way better than that team here, or vice versa. Neither team has any glaring weakness, and to me, that just says, I think it's going to go the distance. It's going to go 7, and I'm sure, both fan bases will be having a heart attack, and the Rangers will figure out a way to win it in 7 games there. But figure we can go ahead and wrap things up there. And Armando, thank you as always. It's a ton of fun. And Ranger fans, Panther fans, thank you guys as always, and we will see you next time.